Five. We ready to go? Okay. Good evening. We're ready to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the July 9 meeting of the County of San Diego Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board. We will start with roll call. Ms. Kenk, if you can call the roll, please.
Chair Marianne Pinter,
Present.
Vice Chair Nadia Keene Ayu,
Present.
Bonnie King present. Eileen Delaney. Dr. Brown,
Present.
Andrew Hayes,
Present.
Ariana Federico Mondragon,
Present.
Tim Ware, G.I. Wilson. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any statements of just cause for virtual participation? Ariana.
Yes. Hi, Chair. Hi, everyone. I'm participating virtually for this month's meeting for medical reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on any matter that is within CLERB's jurisdiction, but not on the open session agenda. Each speaker must complete and submit a request to speak form. And in order to ensure we're able to complete our open session business in time to enter our time certain closed session, the total time allowed for public comment will be no more than 45 minutes. Naris, can you tell us how many people have submitted a speaker's slip?
We have 3 in-person requests to speak as of now.
And how many online?
We have 2.
Okay, 3 minutes per person. Who is the first public speaker?
So the first is Priscilla.
Hello, my name is Priscilla Drake Williams. On June 14, 2024, at George Bailey Detention Facility, I was visiting my husband. I was teaching him how to twist his hair and showing him my outfit when Deputy Sosa came and told me I had to leave. I asked him why. He didn't know why. He told me to go to the lobby. As we walked to the lobby, Detective Snelling aggressively approached me, asked me my name, and snatched my ID out my hand, asked for a paper, lifted the back of my jacket, and felt on my rear. As he tried to feel for the front, I moved his hand away, and he said he will get a woman to do it. As we walked to the lobby, he told me that I was detained for doing sign language. He threatened me to sit down unless I wanted to go to Las Colinas for 3 days. I'd never been to jail before, I'd never been arrested. He told me to sit in handcuffs until my temper calmed down. I didn't have a temper. I was calm the whole time. On 6/20/2024, I filed a complaint with CLERB. On 7/10, IA responds with a letter saying they were investigating the incident. On 7/11, Detective Snelling, the same detective that sexually assaulted me, waited across the street from my house for me to go to work at 5:30 a.m. Without a warrant, he pulled me over and basically just pulled me over and said, "Get out the car, you're going to jail." He searched my car and he took my cell phone and he had a woman take me to jail, one of his women deputies, and he also had about 6 other undercover detectives there. I bailed out on a $125K bond for false charges. And on 7/18/2024, the DA rejected his case documents, but he kept my cell phone and he never logged it in as my personal property. I talked to his supervisor, Sergeant Aaron Baker, but he said he couldn't help me, only give the detective my phone number. On 7/26, Detective Snelling sent a letter for a warrant for 2 cell phones that I don't own and I don't know about to get searched for them, I guess. And then now, like, I just don't feel safe. I'm scared to leave my house. I'm traumatized every time I see a sheriff or police, and I've been going to therapy and stuff. But I just feel like he needs to be investigated for his sexual assault, his retaliation, his false imprisonment, and unlawful searches. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Seltzer, can you confirm that you've received the complaint? Okay, we're going to confirm that we've received your complaint, okay? Nars?
Next, we will call David Settles.
Hello, I'm David Settles, brother of Matthew Settles, who died at George Bailey Jail exactly 2 years ago this Friday. So on this second anniversary, I'd like to take a little time to share who Matt was so you get to know him. As I've spoken at CLERB many times, Matt struggled with schizophrenia. Even so, Matt was kind, gentle-hearted, and loving, and loved relating to all people and spending time with his family. Matt had a lifelong love of learning and sharing his knowledge. Matt graduated in engineering, studied philosophy, loved reading classics, climbed mountains, and wrote poetry. Having delusions and in crisis, Matt was taken to jail where he received no treatment, was assaulted, was put in solitary isolation, and succumbed to this death sentence. I'm here to say that the mentally ill in our community must be treated better. Here is poetry from Matt's beautiful mind that I'd like to share. Intrepid intrigue surges through the mind, spiraling sensations, souring sights. Yet what is hidden is the forbidden. Looking deeper through the mist will only get you just a gist. The kernel never popped, and you've never seen it shine. Where you go, you're one step out of time. Dreary days in a haze. Where is your path? Are you before or aft? It does not matter. You're all in deep. Go ahead, take a leap. In the abyss. A life in insanity has no bounds. Presidents are like funny clowns. Picasso paints palpitating plums. Portugal touches Ellis Island. The world is a cube, the open line at Jiffy Lube. Cans of beer 2 feet tall. Homes round as a ball. On and on the visions swirl. Where I go, I do not know. But you aren't me and I aren't you. So dive into this azure blue. Unless you seek 2 for 2. This is force. Now you see what I'm driving for. All this makes little sense unless you are a little dense. Thank you, CLERB, for this time.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Next, we will call Sabrina Whittle.
Hello, good evening, CLERB. I'm Sabrina Weddle, as most of you guys know, Saxon Rodriguez's older sister. I'm here today to talk about, one, the new process of scanning deputies, then walking through a metal detector to find lethal drugs such as fentanyl. I'm not too sure how the 2 and 2 work, but I'm willing to listen and see how that goes. I'm also here to talk about Pedro Jr. I see that the report was initially presented to CLERB on June 20, 2024. In the special meeting during closed session, the board requested further investigation and additional information which was added to this report and is highlighted in red. I'm still not seeing his cell checks. I'm still not understanding if the cell checks were done on time, and what the deputy used to cut down Pedro Jr. Again, if it was a knife, it's a felony. But hey, he's a deputy. We don't hold deputies accountable. I really hope that the deputy that has been harassing and stalking the young lady in the back gets held accountable. I've been to George Bailey to visit a family member as well, and to know that these are the things that are happening. But yet you go through all these complaints and all you see is action justified, action justified, action justified, summary dismissed. Will anybody be held accountable in CLERB's eyes? I didn't want to come here this evening because it's just again, it's BS. It's time and time again, we are shown that these family members are not cared about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Yusuf Miller.
Good evening. My name is Yusuf Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody Campaign. Thank you for being here today. We still have the same concerns that we have when it comes to scanning the deputies and staff in the jails. I know that Kelly Martinez says she's going to scan the deputies, but it's random. And that's not quite the mark that we're trying to hit. We would actually see that all 7 jails should have screening of everyone every day. So this routine screening of these jails is not the mark that we were looking for. I don't think it's impactful. I think it's ceremonial, and we should have something that is substantial in the way of keeping drugs out of our jails. On the records, it seems that the drug overdoses and the deployment of Narcan has dropped and it has decreased. I love that fact. If it is a fact that it has dropped, but we need it to be 0 because this is an enclosed system. This is a closed system, which means every overdose in the jail is law enforcement's fault because it's not supposed to be going in there anyway. I also have people contacting me who are not really trusting the CLERB system of reporting. I try to guide them towards CLERB system of reporting and trying to help them with CLERB system of reporting. But unfortunately, the community doesn't seem to be encouraged to do that. So what I'll do is to spare the person's name who are incarcerated, I have a couple people that I need to refer to you to make a complaint through the CLERB system of people who have not been taken care of according to their family members. They're reaching out to the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, the Saving Lives in Custody campaign, because they don't trust it. They know that we've been here fighting the good fight. And what we need to do is change that opinion of the community by making sure that we do more outreach, make sure that we do more rotational visits to communities to let them know what the CLERB is, what they're about, and what they're trying to do. So we have this issue, this disconnect in the CLERB that we need to build a bridge. We, of course, are allies because we want to see deputies that go rogue held accountable. Period. We're not pro-law enforcement. We're not anti-law enforcement. We're just pro-justice. So we're here for the justice sake. And if these rogue officers are stalking people, or rogue officers are abusing people or neglecting people, like they did with Elisa Serna, like they did with Kevin Mills, like they did with Saxon Rodriguez, like they did with Gilbert Gill, like they did with Omar Moreno Arroyo, like they did it with many other families that we're supporting, that they are held accountable and the system is held accountable. We also want a look and investigation into how we're held accountable. Because unfortunately, when someone is held accountable, if we are sued, the county pays, and that's the taxpayers, and we did not neglect or kill our loved ones.
Thank you. Next, we will start calling the online request to speak. I have first caller with the name RJCSD.
Good evening. Good evening, Darwin Fishman, he, him, his, Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego. And I just wanted to also add what's previously been shared about the proposal for drug screening. I think what's extraordinary, I'll say this based on my experience working on the Juvenile Justice Commission. When we got a tour of the new facility that was being built, replacing Kearney Mesa, they proudly showed us the new age for what they had for drug screening, their body scans they had, and showing us the ability of what they could see and how in depth it was. So what's amazing is that if you have that available, why wouldn't you use that then for all staff, including sheriff deputies? And I think it's what's extraordinary about this, and I think it's important for CLERB to think about this, is that law enforcement uses their search procedures when they pull over people based on this rationale, this logic of If you really don't have drugs, then let us search your vehicle. This notion of volunteer searches. What's the problem? Why wouldn't that same logic be applied to the sheriff's department? If they don't have anything to hide and they're just going to work, what's the problem with having them being screened every time they go in? And I agree with what Yusuf just said. The Sheriff Martinez presentation, the NAACP, made it sound like that the drug screening that was going to be done would be daily and would be done for everyone. So I want to make sure that as you move forward your policy, that you're connecting those dots. And at the end of the day, you're ensuring, of course, that drugs don't get into the jails and that you don't have the incidents that you've had a history of with people dying in jail, people that have never taken drugs before, somehow getting access to them, somehow taking them, and that there's no monitoring. There's no health checks. There's no awareness of this. I also want to say, hoping that you will be announcing, of course, the new EO, and that as you bring in new executive officer, that this will be part of your continued work with the recommendations and the follow through with the sheriff's department. Again, even if it takes 3, 4, 5 times, and that hopefully also that this will create a better environment where the sheriff's department will not be rejecting your recommendations and you won't have to be going through these steps. I also want to add to this that one last thing, just a suggestion in seeing how the CPP, your sister organization for the city of San Diego, just did their town hall on pretext stops. The police chief was there, and the police chief, Wall, made that decision to be there. I think it should be communicated to Sheriff Martinez that she can attend these events, she can attend town halls you do, that she can make herself available. Thank you.
Thank you, Norris. Before you go, we have 2 more public speakers online. Is that correct?
Now I have 3.
Okay, before you go to the next public speaker, I just wanted to also remind members of the public, we do have a presentation tonight on the new screening process that the Sheriff's Department has adopted. And if you wish to speak to that item, it is item number 5. If you could please submit your request to speak form now to Norris. If you're joining online and you wish to speak on item number 5, make sure to raise your hand using the Zoom feature and keep it up until your name is called. So once we start that presentation, we're not going to take other speaking slips, so please try and get them in before we start the presentation. Okay, go back to the public comment. Thank you.
Next, we will call Kathleen. Kathleen, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I didn't wish to speak. I'm sorry if my hand is up.
All right, so we will go to the next caller then. Next, we will call Patricia. Patricia, can you hear me? Patricia? I'm asking her to unmute, but she's not taking it. Patricia, if you hear me, please unmute yourself. Patricia, if you hear me, your time starts now. Yeah. That concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the July 9 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Ms. Kank and Dr. Brown?
Ready?
Yes, please call the roll.
Chair Mary Ann Pintar,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nadia King Ayub, Bonnie Kink, yes. Dr. Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Hayes,
Yes.
Ariana Federico Mondragon,
Yes.
passes.
Thank you. We will now move to item number 5, our presentation training on the new screening program. I'd like to welcome Assistant Sheriff Dustin Lopez. Thank you for joining us tonight. And not to be rude, when your slide presentation's up, I'm going to turn around and look. So not turning my back on you, just towards the screen.
Good evening, board. I just wanted to introduce myself to everybody that doesn't know me. My name is Dustin Lopez. I am the Assistant Sheriff of the Detention Service Bureau. I was appointed by the sheriff in March of this year to take over the bureau. Prior to that, I was a commander over law enforcement support, which is our ancillary units such as the helicopter division, SWAT, canines, and stuff like that. So prior to that, I was a captain at North Coastal. So I believe I have an array of experience in this area. So to get started, and I hope I can dispel some misconceptions that I'm hearing tonight. The overall purpose of the screening program is to, can I get that forwarded? Thank you. To screen employees and visitors, and that's everybody coming into the jail. I hear a lot about screening the deputies. It's anybody that's coming into the jail to prevent contraband or prohibited items from entering the detention facility or any other place where incarcerated persons may be. What are the prohibited items we're talking about? Obviously, items deemed illegal by local, state, and federal law. That's our drugs. Any unauthorized weapons, such as firearms carried by civilians, knives, any items that would be perceived as weapons. Marijuana or cannabis products, although those are legal in public, they are not inside the facility. Any vaping products or devices. On our employee side, employees will not be able to bring in any medication that they don't need over an 18-hour period. If I can get the next slide, please. So what is the personnel? And I think I'll take this opportunity right here before I discuss the personnel is what people are asking why these are random searches. One of the reasons we have not implemented an employee screening program immediately, and I know that was an ask by CLERB, is because of logistics. Currently, we're about, just in detentions, about 250 detentions deputies down as far as staffing. As you can see on the screen, it takes roughly about 6 to 8 people to complete the screening process. If we did it at all detention facilities, and we did it the 2 different shifts, day and night shift, we would probably roughly need about 80 to 100 personnel that we currently don't have. The 3 community service officers that you see at the top do not belong to our detention service bureau. They actually belong to our court service bureau. So those individuals will be borrowed when we do the screening process. So they're not part of our detentions facility. So I hope that answers the question why we're doing random searches instead of we're doing it all the time. As we start these searches, we're gathering statistical information, basically how much time it is taking, how much staff we need, how many more canines we possibly need to basically grow this program out to a full-time program. So on the community service officer, as I said, they're coming from the courts. They're trained to operate the X-ray machines. The facility commander will provide direction to the CSOs and sergeants. He will basically be the overall coordinator of that screening operations. The sergeants will conduct ID checks, search bags, property, investigate suspicious violations of the policy. And then our canine deputies will obviously conduct property searches, area searches, and common areas and vehicles. If I can get the next slide, please. So on the equipment that these CSOs, and by the way, anybody operating this equipment will be screened prior to our screening process taking place. So basically we will check any items they have. The canines will sniff them. They will have their body worn cameras on. And basically we have anywhere this screening project is going on, there's video to take place in case anybody tries to drop an item on the ground or hide something and stuff like that. We can go back and look at the video surveillance. So the CSOs will be operating the Smith's detection X-ray machine. So everybody that has property will place their property on there. It will go through and be screened. Once that property is screened, they will walk past the screening machine. The canine will actually sniff any items that they have, and then the canines will actually sniff the person as they walk by. They will then go past that the cell sense pulse detector, which detects any metal. And obviously we have the handheld detectors in case we need to use those. Next slide, please. As I said, the canines will be doing the sniffing for any drugs. If there's any activity that the canines actually locate on, that person will be asked to step away. We will isolate that person in a different room for a small period of time, and then we will have the canine walk past and sniff them again. Excuse me, based on the fact that some of the deputies that work in the jail also work in the field, there may be instances where basically they were in a drug house, they had processed narcotics. So there may be a reason why the dog is locating on them besides them, having narcotics on them. So that's why we're isolating them a second time and running the dog through. We may ask them to do stuff like possibly take off their shoes if the dog's located on their feet or any other items that they may have. As I said before, anybody working at the location during the screening will have their body worn cameras on, and there will be a surveillance video camera going behind that so we can actually check it a second time if we need to. So the flow of the actual process goes, anybody entering the facility will produce an ID. If they cannot produce an ID, and as I said, they're not just deputies, these are civilians too. If they cannot produce an ID, they will not be allowed entrance into the facility. They will place their stuff on the x-ray machine, as I said before. They will walk through the metal detector. The canine sniff of the staff and their belongings will happen. And basically we will run the screening program for about 3 hours on every shift. So if we decide to do it, we will start it at 5 a.m., either morning or night, and run it till about 8 o'clock. The reason we do it for about 3 hours is because that's on some testing we've done on the dogs. That's basically the duration that the dogs can work before they get tired and, they're not at 100%. And basically the project is scalable as we need it. If we get information, let me take a step back, how the randomization of the searches go, I will make that decision. That decision will be based on analytics and some information that we're receiving. The analytics would be, inmate population, naloxone deployments that we've had, information that we get for our detentions investigation group or our detentions investigators. So if that information is provided to me that we believe drugs are possibly coming in and or we have high naloxone deployment or any naloxone deployment anyways, these are scalable where I can say, go ahead and set up the screening project. If a staff member or visitor is suspected of having prohibited or illegal items during the screening process, the following procedures shall occur. The employee or visitor will be escorted to a private screening area with a sworn supervisor present. As I said before, the sheriff's canine will conduct a secondary search. We call that a closed search instead of an open air search to see if the dog locates on an actual item or body part. The employee or visitor may be questioned if they are in possession of any illegal items, prohibited items, or items that may be attempted to enter as contraband into the facility. We have to remember that all these employees are afforded their employee rights, provide administrative investigation. That's including the peace officer bill of rights, lawburger, et cetera, or any applicable laws, meaning if we're making an arrest at that point in time, they would be given their Miranda rights. Employees or visitors found in possession of illegal items are subject to detention, citation, or arrest. Employees found in possession of prohibited items that are legal to possess but deemed contraband inside the facility. We may conduct an administrative investigation, but basically these would be people that have pocket knives, the vaping devices that I talked about and stuff like that. We may have them just return those back to their vehicle. We will document it, but have them return those back to their vehicle. Thank you. I know there's been a lot of questions about why we're not scanning using the body scanners, and I just want to dispel a lot of different rumors that are going on. When we use the actual body scanners, they're very evasive as far as showing body parts and genitalia. A lot of people say they're like the TSA scans. I have these pictures and I can show them to everybody. This was what a TSA scan would show. And you have to remember when you're going through a TSA scan is looking for either a firearm, a weapon, and or explosives. When somebody's looking for drugs inside a system, and I've actually had to, on these pictures here, actually have to block out the genitalia areas of what these would actually be scanned, based on employee rights and, somebody's basic privacy is the reason we're not doing body scans on employees. We just believe that it's too invasive. We would have other employees looking at these imagings, and just on employee rights, we don't think it's right. The secondary thing is logistics. It would take 10 to 15 minutes per employee to do this. So on an average thing, let's say the staffing levels, 30 people, it would take over 3 hours to scan these people before we would be able to get them in. That concludes my presentation.
We are going to go to board questions and comments, and then we'll go to public comments. Ms. Kank had her hand up, and then Dr. Brown.
When is this going to start?
I can tell you this because it's random and we're not letting out the information. I can tell you it's going to start immediately.
Okay, what does that mean? I don't understand. Immediately, like yesterday, today?
I'm not going to release the information based on the fact that if I say what day it's going to happen.
No, I'm not saying what day. I
um,
mean, has it already started?
It has not started yet. We wanted to give the presentation to CLERB before we
Okay.
actually started the screening process.
Okay, so like a week, a day? You're not telling me.
I'm not going to release when it's going to happen, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for your service. I understand
I'd like to say thank you for your service, sir, and thank you for the presentation. I think I might understand why you don't want to release that information because, and I don't expect an answer from you because people might try to prepare, come up with ways and for that date or whatever. But again, thank you. I know you have a hard job. It's just a few, maybe 2 or 3 people makes it hard for all of y'all. Like young lady was just talking about, I don't know if that all of, no, I haven't. But we're here to make sure that the majority of people like yourself are not treated badly by people outside because of something another bad actor does, maybe that's employed. I hope you all have the same feeling that you're trying to clean up any of the people that are causing problems or causing these image things or, perceptions about how law enforcement is. Because I don't think as a community, we cannot afford to allow anyone to presume that they can operate outside the law. So thank you for your.
I appreciate that comment.
Thank you.
Any other board members have questions or comments? Ms. Kina-Youb.
I'm sorry, I don't address you by your name. I'm not feeling well, so I forgot it. I apologize.
Dustin Lopez.
Thank you. Officer Lopez, I have a question. Your officers are trained in what to look for for inmates and when they're trying to sneak in things, correct?
That's correct.
So is it possible, in your honest opinion, that they may be knowledgeable in ways to be able to still sneak in drugs using these methods since they already know the methods that are used to hide this?
I think anybody can circumvent anything. I mean, that would be, once they study the process, they'd be able to circumvent anything. What you have to rely on is the process that we're putting in forth. I mean, I'm being 100% honest. The most effective person or thing and during these employee searches is the dogs. Let's be honest. We're trying to prevent fentanyl and other drugs from entering the jail. It is the dogs that are alerting on these individuals. And I think there's enough ethics. You have to realize the canine unit does not work with anybody inside the detention facility. So these are not people that I would say know each other on a daily basis. And I hope, and know that there's enough ethics that basically if a dog is alerting on somebody, that basically we are sequestering that person to the appropriate area and taking the appropriate action. If that answers your question.
That does, thank you. One more question, please. Do you have statistics or numbers on how effective the dogs are normally in being able to dictate or detect certain drugs?
I do not have exact statistics. That's a great question. However, what we are doing is basically the dogs alert on certain scents during their training. We actually have different actors put those scents on their bodies going through this screening that we've already set up to make sure that the dogs are alerting. So we do a testing process that's usually done before we open the screening process of the people who get there early, like an hour early before this opens up. And we will have people walk through that have these different scents that the dogs will alert on just to make sure that things are working the way they're supposed to be working.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew? I have a few questions. If the dogs have a positive detection result, they tell you that they smell a drug and you sequester the person, could you body scan them at that point? Would you feel like you had enough justification to body scan them because the dogs have detected some illegal substance on them?
I would probably say we would need a search warrant at that point in time to body scan somebody, but I will tell you there's a written policy that we've already put through the labor unions. As I said before, and I keep on reminding people, this is just not with deputies. So we had to go to the Deputy Sheriff's Association. There's other SCIU employees, DGS employees and stuff like that, that we have agreed not to body scan them.
And based on what I've learned and read about this policy, another reason that I believe the Sheriff's Department felt like body scanning deputies in particular is because the body scan really tells you if someone has ingested, correct? That's really the difference between the body scan that we've been advocating for. If they've swallowed it, if it's in a body cavity, wouldn't it take time for that to pass? If it's just a visitor coming in, I'm suggesting that maybe it wouldn't be effective for people who are coming in and out quickly because it would take some time for them to pass it. Is that right?
That would be correct.
Okay. And then you said that this new process will this new process will be used to search for, screen for other contraband items like pocket knives or things that people aren't supposed to be bringing in. Is there not a process in place now to screen for those items? What's happening now when people are coming in and out?
Well, there wouldn't be a screening process as far as a magnetometer, like we had set up a magnetometer and stuff like that. There would be a visualization. Like, I'll give you an example. A defense attorney can go in and see an incarcerated person and not be searched.
I didn't know that. I guess I assumed everybody who was going into a detention facility was somehow screened for these items, but that's not happening.
That is not our process at the point is currently. And I will tell you this, as far as the screening program, to my knowledge, and we have checked with other county sheriffs up and down the state, that we are the first ones to do this.
Okay, well, hopefully it's helpful, not just for drug detection, but for these other things too. Anyone else have any other questions? Naris?
Yes, Chair Pintar, we have board member
Federico,
Federico
I'm
McBrown.
sorry,
Yes,
I didn't
please.
turn around to look. I apologize. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. My question was actually, if other departments in the state, had some sort of process. I'm wondering if there's gonna be, any like reporting that you're gonna be doing or looking at to review, like the implementation, like any progress reports, of what is effective or isn't throughout, the year, since it is a new, screening.
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as the screening process, we are collecting all the pertinent data. And the pertinent data is obviously items that we would be seized, but a lot of times we're basically seeing how long it takes as far as to get people through there, how many alerts the dog has, how long the dog can actually stay on the line without being perishable and stuff like that. We were looking at definitely new technologies. Obviously, it's our intent to, approach, later on the Board of Supervisors to ask them for additional staffing to basically, bolster the program as it goes forward. But yeah, we will always look for new technologies and initiatives as we progress through.
Thank you. I mean, I think I think our board would be interested in learning about any progress reports or any updates that you have within the year.
Definitely.
Thank you.
To that question or that comment, do you have a time frame in mind where you might be looking to evaluate, like is it 3 months, 6 months? Just wondering when we might see some progress report.
I do not have a timeline. I can work something out, with the CLERB board.
Or if you could just let us
That's
let
fine.
us know.
Obviously, when we're in full implementation of all the facilities, I think it will be more telling of
More
obviously-
data
Yeah,
available.
more data is what's going on.
Dr. Brown?
You mentioned ethics. Are you trying to make sure that none of the people who currently, you making sure that people who work together are not part of the screening process, correct?
With the exception of the watch commander, and the watch commander would be the highest ranking person at the facility because they oversee the entire operations.
Okay.
That is correct. We are trying to make sure that does not happen.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more question from me. If someone had ingested drugs in order to, sneak them in, would the dogs be able to detect that?
I would know that. I would have to research that. I would tell you honestly, I do not believe so. Even if somebody had immediately ingested drugs or basically swallowed it and it had not fully entered in the system, even on the scan, it would be really difficult to see that. Because obviously you have food particles and stuff inside your system and stuff like that. Not to get too detailed, but we're looking at intestinal scans and stuff like that after it's passed over through, that's how we detect it in the current scans on IPs. So it would be really difficult.
Okay. I guess I was under the impression that if someone said, I don't exactly know how things are ingested, it's in some sort of a bag or something,
Hmm.
that any trace amounts that might be left on their hands or something, the dogs wouldn't detect that?
That they would, if depending on how they ingested and when they ingested it, yes, there would be trace amounts, and the dogs can pick up on trace amounts. As a matter of fact, when there's downtime, and as far as the employee screening, if there's downtime and there's no employees going through there, it's our intention to actually do the parking lots, which means, where the employees park their cars and stuff like that, and go through areas such as locker rooms where the employees are getting dressed and other employee areas to basically let the dog see if they can locate on anything inside the facility.
Good. Anyone else? Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here and giving us this presentation. I know we did it on a little bit of short notice, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now go to public comments. How many do we have?
We have 2 in person and 4 online.
Okay, then you'll have to help me do the math. 2 minutes? 2 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We'll start with in person, and actually let's alternate this time. So in person, online, in person, online. Okay.
Right. First, we will call Yusuf Miller.
Youssef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody campaign. I really enjoyed the presentation by Assistant Sheriff Lopez. And these are the type of things that we want to see. It's just that we want them universal. We hope that we can find some way around the staffing shortage, around the timing shortage, so that we can save lives in custody. That's what we're after. And when I say scanning, I really, my part of scanning is mostly dogs, metal scanners, all the other implements. We have a fentanyl crisis. And that's what's taking most of our people's lives. And that's what really I'm focusing and concentrating on. The other scans, they're great as well, but that's not where we, as the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, are focusing on. Number 2, I do like the secondary scan as well, But my problems come in is where we talk about employee rights. I mean, and I see that as versus public rights. If we have employees that can't get scanned because of their privacy, what about the privacy of the public? And I think that that's a tension that we need to resolve. I think that when you have this kind of a sworn behavior that you're supposed to be upholding, you're supposed to hold to a certain standard. And at this particular time, a crisis time is time for crisis measures. So I don't like to see, and I think we can try to work on and look at more closely this employee rights versus public rights. And that thing has stuck in my mind there. In discussions with SEIU, and we'll see what's going on and what is the problem. We're in close contact and close discussions with SEIU, and also the gap where we have attorneys that are not scanned as well, which is also a gap. But that was my time. Thank you.
Online, please.
Next, we will call Tom Packard.
Yeah, actually, I had my hand up earlier. I thought I'd submitted to speak on item 3, not on this one. But I wasn't called on item 3, so maybe I put the wrong item number. Could I do my comments after this agenda item's done?
You want to speak not to this item?
Correct. I signed up for the general comment item and I got a thank you message on that. So I thought I'd be called on for item 3, but I wasn't.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead for 2 minutes if that's okay, please.
Okay, right now?
Sure.
Yeah, even though it's not on this subject, well, I'm glad this subject is getting this attention. I'm Tom Packard. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice North County. I want to touch on 2 related items. First, the sheriff's publicly available information about provision of behavioral health services in the jails hasn't been adequate. Numbers of individuals receiving psychotropic meds, suspected overdose incidents, Narcan deployments.
Mr. Packard, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought I hit the unmute button. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. We heard you up until you said Narcan deployments, and then your mic cut out.
Okay, sorry. And suicide attempts, they're not enough. The CLERB and the public should have access to anonymous data, including all behavioral health staff coverage and all services provided to incarcerated persons. Basics include the number of medical assessments at intake conducted by a nurse and the percentage of intakes receiving an assessment, and all the services provided by qualified mental health professionals. Data should include documentation of adherence to the Detention Services Bureau Manual of Policies and Procedures, industry best practices, and compliance with all contract standards. Analysis of such data connected with outcomes for incarcerated persons, including overdoses and health problems, can lead to improvements, including fewer deaths and hospitalizations. Related to this, since the sheriff rarely provides opportunities for the community to ask her directly, please give questions from the community, including these, to the sheriff's staff at your meeting so they can provide answers at a future meeting. I'll email these questions to CLERB staff, and I hope other community members can. And if the staff can respond at a future meeting, that'll be a clear indication of commitment to listening to community input. Thanks.
We do have an email available for providing additional questions, and Anaris does a great job of making sure that the board gets them. Just remind the public that we do not have jurisdiction over medical staff. So some of that information we do not have access to, which we are seeking, however, and we do have some information about the Narcan deployment that I'd be happy to share later in the meeting. Can you go to the next public comment?
Next, we will call Sabrina Weddle.
Hello, Sabrina Weddle, Saxon Rodriguez's sister. My brother, Saxon Rodriguez, unfortunately died from fentanyl and methamphetamine. CLERB had made the decision that the San Diego sheriffs failed at keeping those lethal drugs out of the facility. causing my brother to die. To be honest, even after hearing the presentation today, I think even if the 4 deputies, Brian Powell, Andrew Randovich, Maxwell Rimple, and Andre Wanzer, even if they went through a random search the day that my brother died, I think he still would be dead. If the nurses Melissa Burns, Reggie Barreto, Carrie Cavello, Ria Encarnacia, Caitlin Hendricks, Marlena Banza, Kelly Payne, Levy Santos, and Chantel Williams, if any of those 9 nurses went through this random screening, I still think that my brother would be dead. I heard that the medication over an 18-hour period, if deputies or visitors have medication that does not need to be taken in an 18-hour period, who's deciding if that medicine needs to be given within that 18-hour period? Is that going to fall back on employee rights? Is that going to fall back on HIPAA? I mean, anybody can walk in with a prescription and say, I need this in an hour. And then what's the next protocol? Will a K-9 be present for every random search, or will a K-9 not be available that day? A K-9 can detect if a deputy was in a drug search prior to working at the jail, but it can't smell if anybody ingests drugs. I think that we should kind of look into that. Also, I heard that if a deputy or a staff, whoever's being scanned, if they arrive with a vape or a pocket knife, they'll be told to put it back in their car and it will be documented. You would think that they wouldn't be walking into a facility with items that they shouldn't have, but hey, go put it back in your car, bro.
Thank you. Can we go to the next online commenter?
Yes, next we will call Robin Sales.
Hi. Hello.
Ms. Sales, I think you might still be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Robin Sales. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice North County. I'm also the chair of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board of San Diego County. I'm speaking for myself. But in the context of being the chair of the Criminal Justice Subcommittee over the last few years, I had the opportunity to go to the Central Jail and see the scanning device that is used for incarcerated persons. And I wanted to know from Assistant Sheriff Lopez if there's been any comparisons of the dog's ability to screen for drugs and the machines. Has any kind of parallel assessment been done of that? And my second question, is this going to be instituted in all of the jails in San Diego County?
Go to the next public comment. Have anyone else in person?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So next we will call Paloma Serna.
Hello, my name is Paloma Serna. I'm the mother of Elisa Serna, who died in custody on November 11, 2019, at the hands of the San Diego County Sheriff deputies, mostly Deputy Lucas Lacey Lovisa and Deputy Tony Hall Bennett and Deputy Roshan Foster and medical staff, but mostly so-called nurse Dana Lee Pasquale. And I'm from the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and the Saving Lives in Custody of California. I would like to know if the chair has asked Kelly Martinez to attend the CLERB meeting. And so with the presentation, it seems good, but then it's not good, because the thing is, it was stated earlier, these metal detector machines, they're detecting metal objects. What can we do to curb down drugs being brought into the jails? Will there be drug testing of employees, of deputies and medical staff? I understand about the body scan, but I don't know. I still kind of, I don't know. What about people, deputies entering central jail? They go in through that door with no one checking on them. When will that change? In Las Vegas, Nevada, the casinos, they have their employees bringing all their personal items in these clear bags, so everything that's in that bag could be seen. Is the jails going to start doing that? Because I watched deputies enter the jails with backpacks, especially at the Central. And what about searching deputies when they're returning back from court and also incarcerated people? But my main focus is the deputies. Give us justice.
Thank you. Is there another, anyone else who's requested to speak, Naris?
Yes, we have Dr. Fishman.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Darwin, I want to jump in again and just say, following what Robin said about what's used in jails for prisoners, the point is, and I don't know if Officer Lopez understood this, is when the sheriff, the people running the jails set up their system of searches, it's to reduce the amount of drugs coming in. So if it's good enough for the prisoners and in their logic in their mind, they're reducing the amount of drugs coming in and they're using things like metal detectors, then that same standard should be applied to all the staff and the deputies. It doesn't make any sense that you'd have a separate standard if your goal is to reduce the amount of drugs coming in. The point is that if you're doing the screening for prisoners and it's not reducing the amount of drugs that are in, and you're having impacted families that are testifying about how their loved ones are dead, and then even if you have this new drug screening that you're going to set up is not going to have an impact on the way that their loved ones died, then common sense would say that you need to apply a similar standard that you're applying to everyone else if the point is to actually reduce the amount of drugs that are coming in. If it's something to make the employees feel good and to work with employee rights, that's very different than a goal of trying to actually be effective and stop the drugs from coming in. At the end of the day, with this new system they're setting up, we don't obviously want to be back here in a year and hearing about how fentanyl's still a crisis in the jails and we still have more impacted families that are dying because of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we have Sandy Waddell.
Hello, please give my minutes to Sabrina Weddle.
Sabrina.
Hello, on the behalf of my mom who is at home sick, she brought up a point. We talk about human rights, but my brother was left in the day room at San Diego Central Jail for hours upon arrival. I also want to talk about the random searches because we're understaffed, yet the population of what they're bringing into the jails, the high numbers at San Diego County Jail where Saxon died, that's where these random searches need to start. And I mean, I know it's random and they're starting immediately, but man, that out of the 7 jails, that one needs to be hit first. Again, I don't know if your name's Josiah, Saxon would be alive if this was implemented in 2021. I mean, the Narcan started after he passed away. Again, the HIPAA, the 18-hour medicine, HIPAA and employee rights, we're gonna run into that time and time again. Come the data, it's gonna be, it's just not gonna be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Pintar. That concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Assistant Sheriff Lopez, for being here, and thank you for staying to hear the public comment. We are going to now move on to Item number 5. 6. I have a misnumbered on my script. I'm sorry. So apologize for that. We'll move to the executive officer's report. Ms. Hakak.
Thank you, Chair Pintar. So I'll start with staffing. I have some updates. So we are at the final actually step to extend an offer to the SI position, the special investigator. We're still waiting for one item to be finalized from the FGG HR. And then once we will have that component, then we will be able to offer the job.
And then will we be fully staffed or down one still?
It depends on the acceptance. So if the candidate accepted the offer, then that will determine the status. Okay, and the next update is the in-custody death as data study contract. We already extended the contract to January 31st of 2025. I'm working closely with the Department of Purchasing and Contract to amend the statement of work. We will be focusing on San Diego Sheriff County of San Diego County Sheriff Department jails rather than a comparison with other counties. And we already hired a PRA counsel with the help of our general counsel, Ellen Gross, so thank you so much, to analyze the San Diego Sheriff Department responses to the PRA and provide some guidance how to move forward to collect data.
For the benefit of the public, can you tell everyone what a PRA is?
Is the Public Record Act.
Public Record Act request.
Yeah, request, exactly.
Thank you. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Just want to make sure everyone understood what that was.
Next update is the Adobe Right Management, and we already created county emails to all board members. We are still in the testing actually with all the board members. So hopefully we can get this done anytime soon. We anticipate actually if everything went smooth and everyone is able to view the documents, then we will go fully online by October board meeting. So last update, not the last update. We were scheduled for a tour at the mail processing center at the Sheriff Department. At this point, I will defer it to our Chief of Investigation, Lynn Setzler, to provide us with a brief of the visit.
We just wanted to thank Lieutenant Perkins and his colleagues for providing us with the opportunity to tour the mail processing center. And along with that was the K-9 unit that came and gave us a demonstration of all their attempts to keep illegal substances out of the jails and everything that they're doing that we can incorporate into our investigations. So we're appreciative of that for staff and board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Setzler. I have also update for NACL. The annual NACL conference is scheduled for October 12 to 17, 2024, and I was able to secure the budget for 4 attendee, 2 CLERB board member and 2 CLERB staff. Maybe Chair Pintar will provide more information when it comes to her report. And also, I have attached the case progress and status for June and July. Both reports are posted online, and we have also printed copies outside. And we have also the workload reports for June and July. I will start with June. We received 10 new cases, closed 18 cases, and we have 1 death case reported. For July, we have 14 new cases, 11 closed cases, and 1 death case reported. Attachment D for June and July is the correspondence to the full board, and I have it already printed outside and posted online on our page. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to item 7, correct? 7 board chairs report. Sorry. Regarding NACOL, that's the National Association of Civilian Oversight for Law Enforcement, I believe is the acronym. We have 2 spots that we were able to fund this year for board members. With some, we have staff attending, 2 board positions spots available. I know Ms. Kank has expressed an interest in attending. Dr. Brown was unable to attend. We extended an offer to him to attend. So if you have an interest in attending, board members, please let me know. And then I think what we'll do is just go by, if we have more than one person who's interested in attending, we'll go by seniority, who's served the longest on the board. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, sir.
If at that conference, some of the information or some of the training sessions would be available via Zoom?
I don't recall when I attended that anything was available via Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But I know that when Ms. Kank went in the past, she came back with a very thorough report. Our executive officer at the time, Mr. Parker, came back with a very thorough report of some things, and I think we could count on that from our investigators and board members as well. Executive officer hiring update. I wish I had one. I had no idea when we entered into this process how lengthy, how robust, how long the county hiring process can take. But it does take a lot of time. There's some very extensive background checks, reference checks, vetting, all of those things that I think we would want for our executive officer. So it is not quite complete. We're getting close, but we don't have that completed yet. So we aren't able to make any other announcements. Nothing has gone amiss. It just takes a lot of time. So as soon as I have, as soon as that's complete, we will make sure that we issue press release. We will get a statement out to the listserv if you're on it. I know most of you that attend on a regular basis are on the listserv, so you will be among the first to know. We have had some vacancies from Supervisor District 4 for some time. I wanted to let everyone know that the interviews for those positions to be filled are underway. I interviewed along with other county staff, several people this last week. There's more interviews scheduled for the upcoming week. So hopefully we will get those positions filled soon, which will help us make sure that we have quorum. I know that it's disappointing for the public and for us when we aren't able to make quorum and these meetings are canceled. Having a more full board will help that not to happen, hopefully. I wanted to thank both CLERB and Finance and Government Group IT staff for setting up our county emails and for all the technical assistance over the last couple of days. It's been tricky, so thank you for your help. And then just reminding the board members that going forward, all of our communications will only be on county secured emails. You will be responsible for checking those emails on a regular basis, daily basis. You know how frequently we're getting information updates from NARAS, updates on the schedule. So please, once we're all set up, you're responsible for checking that regularly. Finally, I wanted to announce the unfortunate news that former Chair Eileen Delaney has resigned from the board. She is not able to attend these meetings going forward, so she has submitted her resignation just today, I believe. I wanted to thank her for her service. She served on the board for many years, and she served as our chair, which I have learned over the last month is a lot more hours and time commitment than service as a board member without the additional responsibilities, which I'm very happy to have. And I thank you for electing me chair last month. That is the extent of my report, and we will now go to new business. Is that my item or your item?
Yours.
Okay, thank you. New business, the October board meeting, which would have been scheduled on which date? October 15 was
October
what
15.
was the date that it was scheduled for, conflicts with the NACOL conference. So we will have staff out, we will have board members at NACOL. So we are moving that meeting to October 2nd. That was the date available. This room was available, majority quorum available. So thank you for everyone who responded. We do have a quorum for that meeting, so we will move forward with October 2nd. we reported last month, or actually a couple months ago, that a few members of the executive committee of the board had met with Sheriff Martinez and command staff. I asked if we could please do that quarterly and that we could rotate the board members so everyone would get a chance to participate, not just the executive board staff. And she agreed to that. We had another meeting with Sheriff Martinez and command staff on the date to August 3rd? No,
August 5th.
August 5th. Sorry, I did not write that down. August 5th. I was present, our Vice Chair, Ms. Keena Ayub, was present. Mr. Tim Ware was present. Dr. Brown was invited, was not able to make it. It was a good conversation. We did follow up a lot. We had a lot of questions. A lot of the information that was presented to us today about the screening process, we learned some additional information. And we also did ask the sheriff to please attend a CLERB meeting. And we told her that we had many requests for her to speak, and she has agreed to come to a future meeting sometime this fall. We're working out a date where we are available and she is available. So we will keep you posted, and that will be posted on an agenda. Also regarding those quarterly meetings, sorry if I didn't make this clear when I announced that we will be rotating those members. So the next meeting will be in the next 3 months, and I will reach out to you. We can't have more than 4 people at those meetings because that would violate the Brown Act. We'd have more than quorum. So thank you for your patience, and I will make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate. I think we already talked about NACOL. That is it from my report. So we will move to unfinished business, item number 9. I don't think we have anything, Naris. Board member comments. Anyone have comments for the group tonight, for the public? Nadia. Should have said if anyone else that was present has anything to say about the meeting. I meant to do that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I don't have anything to say about the meeting. I do want to remind the public that we hear your concerns every single time you speak. And I understand that you think that we are ineffective and we are limited, and I will agree with that perception. So I encourage you to go to the Board of Supervisors. I will encourage you every single meeting to go to the Board of Supervisors and ask them to give us the power to enact what you need.
Any other board comments? I actually meant to report as part of the board chair's report that I wanted to thank the sheriff's command staff for letting us have this regular dialogue on a quarterly basis. I thought it was productive in understanding where the changes that we're trying to make and how we can work together to achieve what are the same goals, which is to reduce deaths in the jails and to make policing law enforcement in the sheriff's department and in the county more equitable and fair for everybody. And I would just say that we would look forward to having the same kind of dialogue with the probation command staff and with the head of probation. And I would, I'm inviting, asking that if we could please start that dialogue as well. I think it was a positive experience, and we appreciated it. We will now move to item number 11, board member query for sheriff and probation liaisons. Lieutenant Perkins, you want to start, or Officer Lewin, please? Before we hear from our probation liaison, our counsel, Ms. Gross, has some comments.
Thank you, Chair Pintar, board members. Good afternoon. We got a letter from Probation Counsel this weekend addressed to me, legal correspondence regarding some matters. And I just wanted to let you know, Ross, that the letter has been received. I am working with special counsel on a response, and the concerns have been noted, and we will move forward from there.
Thanks for that information, Ms. Gross. Ross Lewin, Supervisor with the Probation Department, Internal Affairs Unit, and CLERB Liaison. I'm here to address a question that has come up the past few meetings regarding some training that our staff receive geared toward neurodivergent youth, for example. So I'm going to give kind of an overview of some of the training that our sworn staff receive that encompasses some of those topics. First of all, the department complies with what we call STC, standards of training, standards for training and corrections, and that is the oversight of all of the training for our sworn staff. Officers assigned to our institutional services are required to complete 24 hours annually. However, upon hire, the training is a lot more intense and rigorous. So upon hire, a new officer will initially go into what we call ISOps, Institutional Services Operations, and that's a 2-week, think of it as more of a basic training where a lot of topics are discussed just to get staff some basic information and knowledge of what they need to start shadowing more experienced staff on the floor of our facilities. From there, within the first year of employment is where staff will attend what we call Core Academy. That's our primary training academy. It's about 6 weeks, 220 hours. And the curriculum is all required, approved, and accredited by STC. One of the sections of Core is a focus on behavioral health, and that is a 24-hour section. And topics in that section include, but are not limited to, trauma interventions and resources, stigma and bias, signs and symptoms, which include identifying specific characteristics related to autism spectrum disorders and neurological disorders. Also within that 24-hour framework, training on adolescent brain development and trauma-informed care is in that section as well. Other relevant core sections include perishable skills, also known as defensive tactics. There's communication, crisis communication in that. That's a total of nearly 60 hours. Interpersonal communication, effective communication, 5+ hours of that. So that will give the officers their basic training where they can start working, for example, on late night shifts and more sensitive times with the young people in the facilities and be signed off. I've mentioned it before, but there's also been last year and this year on our learning management system training called Neurodivergent Excellence, Insights and Understanding. I believe I mentioned it was geared towards the workplace, but it had many transferable topics, and every staff went through that training. Total of 1.5 hours there. I've also mentioned the MANT training that focuses on a new approach to de-escalation techniques and dealing with different types of behavior. That's 12 hours, and that's a newly adopted training, and all of our staff should be through that by the end of 2025. Other relevant training, autism in probation and corrections, which is an 8-hour training that's offered last year and this year. Our in-service training unit is looking for a new provider for that because unfortunately the previous provider passed away. So we're looking for a new provider for that. But the course addresses what autism is, how people with autism act or react, how to effectively deal with persons with autism while handling the duties associated with working in probation or corrections. Dealing with aggression and violence is an 8-hour training. I don't know if I mentioned the autism and probation and corrections, 8 hours as well. Dealing with aggression and violence is an 8-hour training that has some relevant content of how to deal with oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and learn different stages of assault cycle, how to anticipate and respond when youths are triggered to begin to escalate, and how to de-escalate. Our youth in custody practice model is what our new approach is within the past couple of years, and since we opened our youth transition campus, which I think some of you have seen. And that's a 6-hour training that all staff have and will go through, our newer staff. With focuses on case planning, facility-based services, behavioral health management, rehabilitative programming, etc. Dealing with the mentally ill training is 8 hours that is rolled out this year, and staff are familiarized with the psychiatric disorders that affects our youth in custody or on their caseload. This could be also taken by our case carrying officers. So that's kind of an overview of what the relevant training is, and hopefully that answers the questions that were previously asked.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, board members of the board, regarding Officer Lewin's presentation? Nope. Thank you. I believe that that is the information that we were looking for, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Lieutenant Perkins. Officer Lewin, I also wanted to thank you for the demographic information that you provided. I believe that it was unclear whether a board member who had asked for it got what they needed, and we confirmed that you did get the information. We appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry, Lieutenant Perkins.
Oh, no problem. Lieutenant Dave Perkins, San Diego Sheriff's Office. Just want to start off by just giving you guys an overview of our unit with the Division of Inspectional Services. I have 6 sergeants. Most of my sergeants are law enforcement experts on the law enforcement side of the equation, but we also have an expert in detentions. And I brought our new sergeant here tonight, Sergeant Eric Moore. I'd like to introduce him. He's our detentions expert, and I'm going to start bringing him to the meetings. That way, if there's a question about anything detentions related, although I've worked in detentions part of my career, Sergeant Moore has way more experience, so I can like to get you answers if I can at the scene. Sometimes I can't, and I have to do some research, but he's definitely has over 20 years of experience. So I'd like to introduce him, and he can tell you a little bit about himself.
Thanks, LT. Sergeant Eric Moore from the Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 20 years. In that time, I've worked exclusively in the Detention Services Bureau. I've worked at Central Jail, George Bailey, East Mesa, and Las Colinas. So pleasure to meet you all, and I'm sure I'll be working with you shortly.
Thank you and welcome, and we look forward to seeing you here in the future.
Thank you. And just in general, Sergeant Braces, you know, he's the guy that does all the heavy lifting day in and day out, getting you what you need for your cases. And he's more of the expert on our training and law enforcement side. So I'll let these gentlemen kind of field most of the questions, but I know sometimes I'm the one that interacts and I have the answers. So I'll definitely be willing to step in if it's something that's I can answer.
Thank you. And we recognize that sometimes we throw questions at you that you're not going to have the answer to when you're here, but we appreciate the follow-up. And then what I would really like going forward is when, if Aurora or Nars, you could please keep track of the questions that the board members are asking. I'm not always able to do that because I'm trying to manage and chair the meeting. And then we will follow up with you and make sure that we, invite you to come back and give those answers at the following meeting. That's okay.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board member questions for our sheriff's liaison. Questions, comments? I believe at a prior meeting, there was a question about naloxone deployment, Narcan deployment. Lieutenant Perkins did give us a pretty extensive response this last week. So if it's okay if I share that response at this time? I couldn't think of a really good time to share it, but I do think it's something the public's been asking us about as well. Lieutenant Perkins gave us some statistics from 2023. And he also explained that the numbers for the Narcan deployments in the past have been all deployments. So if you don't know, right now, Narcan is deployed anytime there's a suspected overdose death. Most of those aren't necessarily drug related. Some of those medical conditions aren't necessarily drug related. So they are now tracking when medical testing actually does tell the department that this was a drug overdose. So there might be a lot more deployments that are stated on the website that aren't necessarily, or in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Lieutenant Perkins, in the past, there was a lot more deployments listed or stated, enumerated on the website that weren't necessarily, didn't turn out to be drug overdoses. So, but now they are able to tell us how many were confirmed as actual overdoses. So in 2023, there were 3 confirmed overdose deaths in custody based on medical examiner findings. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong numbers. In 2023, you don't have the separate numbers, right? We just know that there was 83 potential saves. So 83 suspected overdose incidents and 3 were actually confirmed to be overdose
Yeah.
incidents.
So, yeah, no, it's,
I'm sorry. I'm
it's
looking at
okay.
a lot of numbers right
No,
now.
it's
so
okay.
I'm trying
I had to talk to the analyst for like 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So prior to 2023, when we were collecting this data, we were just showing when we used naloxone, right? Some of those times were overdoses. Some of those times, a lot of those times, it could have been another issue, such as it could have been a seizure, something like this, right?
Mhm.
The reason why we always give naloxone is because we don't have
know.
that information, right? And we're going to err on the side of caution. We're going to give naloxone because
It's not harmful.
it's not harmful. So we're going to err on the side of caution. So, but now 2023 going forward, we've tried to make an effort to be more accurate. So our medical staff follows up with these cases when someone goes to the hospital and they're given naloxone. If the medical records are available, usually that would be urinalysis, sometimes blood, but typically I believe that they try to get urinalysis. And if we can confirm they had drugs in their system, then we put that as a confirmed overdose. Now, obviously, in the cases where we can confirm it was not drug related, meaning no drugs in the system, we know they have a seizure disorder, whatever, those don't show up. And in the other cases where we can't say either way because we think it was an overdose, but we know it wasn't medical, but we can't prove it because we don't have a drug test, we still put that as a suspected overdose. And I know people think like, oh, well, why wouldn't you know? They're incarcerated persons. Well, believe it or not, they can refuse medical treatment still. They can refuse, having their giving their urine. They can refuse blood being taken. So and sometimes, and even if they don't, sometimes the ER might not take it. Like, let's say they're no longer unconscious or they've come to, they might not. So there are definitely some cases where we won't have those medical records, but we do try. Our medical unit tries to follow up, and we can definitively say, that it wasn't in fact an overdose.
And so the numbers for 2024 so far are 20 suspected overdose incidents when you don't have confirmation either way, correct?
I don't have the sheet in front of me, but is that what?
That's what you wrote, 20 suspected overdose incidents, one of which was confirmed as an overdose in custody death.
Yeah, one of them was confirmed as an in custody death related to an OD. Out of that 20, there were some, I believe, I don't have the report in front of me, but I do believe some of those were confirmed with drugs in the system.
Okay.
I believe some weren't.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the follow-up from the
You're welcome.
question. Okay. Anything else from board members? Nope. Bring up whatever you want. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
I I know you're keeping statistics on numbers. Do you have information, or can you share information about how you think most of the drugs are coming into the jails?
That is a great question, Dr. Brown, and you actually brought it up at a last meeting, and I actually still working on that one for you.
Okay.
I'm still mining that data
Okay.
from all our facilities. So we've started a new, our CNIT team, and they're kind of, I'm trying to see how they are gathering that data when stuff comes in, because we're not just, we're gathering data on not just drugs, but also contraband, weapons. So I want to give you the whole breakdown
Okay.
of everything. And I know you asked specifics about where it's found, like, is it found in clothing? Is it found inside the person?
Right.
Is it found, so I'm trying to see if those specifics are kept as well, or if it's just, this was found from this person. So
Okay.
I hope to have that for you. Actually just had a discussion today with our detention investigation unit, and I'm trying to get that, hopefully have that for you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will ask our council to read us into closed session.
Thank you, Chair Pintar and board members. Oh.
We're ready. You read us into closed session? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. On our closed session agenda tonight, we have 11 matters, and they are all brought under Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. And that is the end of my closed session read-in.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.